What was our first class?
What's the Bible? What's the gospel?
Yeah. The Bible. Okay. And there was kind of two classes in one. Okay, what was after the Bible and the gospel? Tulip.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I'm gonna draw it like this. Okay, so first class we did was the Bible and the gospel. The second class we did was Tulip. And what I'm trying to draw out here is kind of the way that these classes are stacked on each other. The first class, the foundational class, is the Bible. This is going to inform everything we're doing. I just realized you guys probably can't see that. So the Bible is going to inform everything we're doing, so it's the bottom one. And then obviously the Bible tells us about the gospel, so that's the second one. And then branching off from the gospel, now we're getting a little bit further away and we're talking about Tulip. And the reason this is further away is because there's other churches that teach different things about the gospel. So Tulip is the Reformed articulation of the gospel, whereas Calvary Chapel would have a different one. Right? So you see how we're kind of branching off. We're starting with this thing that we all agree on, all Christians agree on, which gives us the gospel, which we all agree on, and now we're kind of branching out on the gospel last week, and now today, kind of branching from Tulip, is baptism. There's one way to baptize, and there's another way. I'm just going to write credo. Credo baptism is where people don't baptize babies. There's two ways to baptize, and we're going to talk about infant baptism today. Infant baptism is also known as pedo baptism. Pedo as in like a pediatrician, it's just the Latin word for child, so pedo baptism, infant baptism. So we're going to talk about baptism, and what I want to try to do is show how baptism, especially infant baptism, fits with this kind of branch of Christianity. We're talking about the Reformed branch, right? This is Reformed over here. Reformed. And we're in this branch as opposed to the, it's Arminian is the technical term, but nobody calls it that. So I just like Calvary Chapel. It's kind of an easy, everybody knows what that is. I went there when I was younger. It's super popular. Calvary Chapel, Rick Warren, Saddleback, all these big churches. That's this branch, and we're over here in that branch. And so what I want to do is try to show how infant baptism fits in with this branch. The thing that I love the most, well, one of the things I love about Reformed theology is that it fits everything together. All of the facets of Reformed theology connect with one another. So what's an example of that? Tulip is all about predestination, right? God chooses us. We can't choose him because we are T. What's T?
Totally depraved.
Totally depraved. Since we're totally depraved, we can't choose him, so God's got to choose us. Now, infant baptism is a picture of that. Can you think of a reason why infant baptism would be a picture of election, predestination?
Because the child has no choice in the matter. It's
Right.
the parents are doing it.
Right. Because of the father and the mother, the guardians, the caretakers, the child is now baptized. That is opposed to a Calvary Chapel model where you have to make a profession of faith and say, you can't be baptized until you say, I'm choosing this for myself. So you see how there's that distinction between Calvary Chapel type baptism, Reformed baptism. Reformed baptism fits with Tulip. Okay? So I'm going to try to show how that all fits together. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the Belgic Confession, Article 34. So if you have your little book, your little gray book, you can flip to Belgic Confession 34. Okay, so this is a long article all on baptism. We don't have time to read it all. Again, really recommend you, especially if you're becoming a member of this church or making a profession of faith. Come on in, it's okay. Really recommend you read this whole book. It's not going to take you too long. But if you become a member of the CRC, you're saying, I believe everything in this book. So really recommend you read it. Actually, I would need to use a stronger word than recommend, because if you're going to say, I believe everything in this book, then you need to read the whole book, obviously. If you're reading it, you don't understand it, that's totally fine. We can talk about it.
But you're saying it in love.
Huh?
Yeah.
You're saying it in love.
I'm saying it. Yeah, I'm saying it in love. Reading the truth in love. That's right. Thank you. Trying to. Okay, so Article 34, Sacrament of Baptism. It says, "We believe and confess that Jesus Christ, in whom the law is fulfilled, has, by his shed blood, put an end to every other shedding of blood, which anyone might do or wish to do in order to atone for or satisfy sin." So it's saying the groundwork. This is why we do baptism, because Jesus has paid the penalty for our death. Okay, now if you skip to page 113, towards the bottom, the paragraph that starts with "for that reason," it says, "For that reason," based on what Jesus has done, "for that reason we detest the error of the Anabaptists." Those are people who are, that's Calvary Chapel. For that reason we detest the error of, I love the way they talked back then too, talk about speaking the truth in love. It's not we reject the error, we detest the error. "For that reason we detest the error of the Anabaptists, who are not content with a single baptism once received, and also condemn the baptism of the children of believers." So Anabaptists, Calvary Chapel, they say don't baptize children of believers. "We believe our children ought to be baptized and sealed with the sign of the covenant, as little children were circumcised in Israel on the basis of the same promise made to our children." Okay, so that's the crux of Article 34. Again, we don't have time to read it all. Basically what happened in the historical context, people had been baptizing their babies since as early as we have church history, really. As early as we have historical documents for the church has been baptizing infants. And then around the time of the Reformation, in the 1500s, this group, after the Reformation, said, "Hey, that's great, Martin Luther, you started the Reformation, but you didn't go far enough. We need to continue the Reformation, and we need to stop baptizing babies, because baptism is a sign for God's people, and babies can't choose to be Christian, and so we need to withhold the sign from them." Not surprisingly, Anabaptists tended to be Arminian. They tended to believe that, and they tended to reject predestination, election. So if you reject predestination, you're going to have a tendency to reject infant baptism. They kind of fit together for the most part. So Article 34 says we reject that, we do infant baptism, and it bases it on one Old Testament sacrament, one Old Testament rite. What's the Old Testament thing that infant baptism is based on?
Circumcision.
Thank you, Rich. Circumcision. I should probably say no, elders can't answer these questions. You know them already.
Why he didn't answer.
It's not only circumcision. On the Old Testament, usually, on the Abraham side, on the Ishmael side, they usually do the same thing. After the baby born, 8 days after, they give dedication to God. They
Yeah.
dedicate it to God.
Yeah, so we're
And not
gonna get
only
there.
that,
Yeah.
they after the thing marked, the thing was the circumcision.
Yeah.
But the dedication came first, and after that.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. Okay, so it's based on Old Testament circumcision, and so if you flip to Heidelberg Catechism 68, question 68. And again, I don't know if I mentioned this. If you have this little book, if you don't have this book, you can grab one and keep it. You can write a name in it. Also, feel free to take notes in your own book. You know, if this is a tool for you to learn theology better. So it's great to have your own copy that you take notes in. Okay, Heidelberg Catechism 68. It's page 41. It says, "How many sacraments did Christ institute in the New Testament?" Okay, baptism, Lord's Supper. There's only 2 sacraments. Roman Catholic Church teaches that there's 7. We won't go into that, but Reformed teach there's only 2. And a sacrament is a sacrament because Jesus instituted it, not because it's something that we think it should be a sacrament. So Jesus only instituted 2 things: baptism, Lord's Supper. And then a few questions on baptism. And if you continue to 74, it says, "Should infants too be baptized?" The answer, yes, infants as well as adults are in God's covenant and are his people. They, no less than adults, are promised the forgiveness of sin through Christ's blood and the Holy Spirit who produces faith. Therefore, by baptism, the mark of the covenant infants should be received into the Christian church and should be distinguished from the children of unbelievers. This was done in the Old Testament by circumcision, which was replaced in the New Testament by baptism. Okay, so key biblical paradigm here that we pick up baptism from. Why do we baptize infants? A key to baptizing infants is the Old Testament act of circumcision. So let me step back. Let's talk about that for a second, and then I'm going to talk about circumcision. So what I'm trying to do right now, showing you how baptism fits with TULIP, predestination, and also kind of defend infant baptism. The default mode in America, what do you think the default type of baptism is in America? So you say adult? Yeah.
Born again Christian mentality.
Yeah, Tyler said adult, born again. Now, you want to be cynical with me. Why do you think the default baptism position in America is adult baptism, not infant baptism?
Because you have conscience of what you're doing.
Yeah, you're conscious of what you're doing. What is an American idea that not a lot of countries have? Not a lot of other countries have.
Free will.
Free will.
Freedom.
Rugged individualism. I'm my own man. I pull myself up by my bootstraps. This is America. I make something of myself. I'm the captain of my own destiny. All of these things are American ideas, and I'm not saying those are bad ideas, but I am saying they're bad ideas when it comes to your salvation, right? And we import that very individualistic mentality, in my opinion, into our conception of baptism. We say, I'm the captain of my destiny. If I'm going to follow Jesus, it's my decision. And so my baptism needs to be tied to my decision. And so most of the churches in America take that position. The problem is that it's not biblical. It's not as biblical as it could be. There's brothers and sisters who are very good Christians. I have friends who hold that view. You can use the Bible to get to that position. They're not heretical. They're not bad people. They're very good Christians. But I want to argue that it's not the most biblical position. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm starting with kind of a wide angle view, and then we're going to zero in more closely. The wide angle view is...
I have a question.
Yeah, Joe, go
Do
ahead.
you believe in infant baptism?
Good question. Yes, I do believe in infant baptism, and that's what I'm going to teach right now, why I believe in it. Okay? So here's why I believe in it, okay? And here's why I think we all should believe in it.